Okay, welcome back for the second part of One Man's Faith. Well, I'm trying to give you a history of what Hanukkah is about, and just so we can kind of understand it. And Israel was under the overall realm of the Syrian Greeks, and they got overtaken by the Roman Empire, but they still had like a governorship over the land. There was Antiochus III, who wasn't too bad a guy. Then Seleucus, who was a little worse, and now we get Antiochus IV. He's even worse, and he wants to try and make everybody have the same religion and culture. And to do that, he removed the high priest. So he throws Yochanan out of the temple, and he installed his brother Joshua, who was a Hellenistic Greek Jew, and he liked to be called Jason because Jason's a Greek term. And he tried to use his office to spread more and more of the Greek customs among the priesthood, kind of diluting the priesthood down. Now, Antiochus attempted to attack Egypt again. Rumor came about that Antiochus was killed, and so the people rebelled against a different priest that came into existence after Jason, named Menelaus, and they ran him out, and he had to go hide. Antiochus found out about this. He got enraged. He heard that what had happened, and he sent armies of people in to try and take back Jerusalem. A lot of people were killed. Antiochus forbade worship. The scrolls were burned. The Torahs that they could find were burned. Sabbath rest, circumcision, and the dietary laws were prohibited. In other words, they said, you can't be Jew anymore, is really kind of what they told the people. There was even, to try and help get the people to become more Greekish, they picked out an old rabbi. He was in his 90s, and they said, eat pork. And they tried to force him to eat pork, and he wouldn't do it. And so the Jewish people started to come back and say, listen, we're Jewish. We're going to do the Jewish way. And he ended up being put to death. Then the army started going from village and town to force everybody to worship the gods and to eat pork, which is against, the Jewish customs. And they entered a town or village called Modim, and there was a priest there called Mattateu, which is a form of the word Matthew, and they demanded that he sacrifice to the Greek idols, and he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so Hellenistic people built an altar, and they approached it to do their sacrifices, which were not, the right sacrifices to do. Mattateu gets a sword, kills the man, and then his sons and the friends that he had around him turned on the Syrian officers and men and killed them. And it kind of started a little bit of a war. Mattateu and his sons and those friends fled to the hills, and they stayed there, but they would come out, and in a kind of a guerrilla warfare way, they would attack the Syrian armies. And they were doing such a good job that the Syrian dictator kept sending more and more of his army into the area, and they kept dying. Before he died, before Mattateu died, he called his sons together and he urged them to continue the fight, in defense of God's Torah. And he appointed his brother Simeon the Wise to lead after he died. And he said that the one to lead this would be Judah the Strong. And this would be one of Netanyahu's, Matyahu's kids. And when he took over, a term was used for those that were fighting, and they called them the Maccabees. The Maccabees was not the name of a family. The Maccabees is composed of the initial letters of the 4 Hebrew words, Mika, Mocha, Baalim, Hashem, which means, who is like you, O God? So they took the who is like you, O God, the first letters of those 4 words, and they formed the name for this band that they called the Maccabees. And so Antiochus tried to eradicate this rebel group. He kept sending people in, but every time they went in, they were defeated. He finally sent 40,000 men against this small band of Jewish rebels, and the 40,000 couldn't do it. And so after a series of battles, the Jewish people won. And it was it was kind of a thing, well, okay, we've gotten rid of them. We can now go back to doing what we want to. But, well, they couldn't. I mean, some did because they were just tired of fighting. They went to Jerusalem to liberate Jerusalem, the Maccabees that were left, and they cleared it out of all the idols. They cleared out the temple of all the idols, and they rededicated a new altar in this temple on the 25th day of Kislev, which happens to be right now, or this is the month of Kislev. The 25th of Kislev happens to fall on the 23rd day of December this year. So the 8 days of the celebration of lights happens during the week of Christmas. It starts on the 23rd and ends on the 31st. Since the golden menorah had been taken and stolen by the Syrians, probably melted down and used to pay off the Romans or do whatever, they made a lesser, if I can say it, menorah, but they only had enough oil for one day. That was all the sacred oil, the holy oil or the dedicated oil was for one day. So they lit the menorah, but the oil lasted for 8 until more oil was made and dedicated. And that's where Hanukkah comes from, is that it's a celebration of the fact that God took a day's worth of oil and caused it to last for 8 days. So Hanukkah starts on the day that they dedicated that new altar in the temple, which is the 25th day of Kislev. And it falls on our 23rd day of December. Let me jump over. There's some stuff here that we don't need to look at. Hanukkah starts with a dedication service or a holy assembly, and they say special blessings. They have a special menorah that they use for Hanukkah. It's a 9-candle candelabra. Now, if you've ever seen a regular menorah, it's I don't have anything I could use. It's a post sticking straight up and has 3 sets of arms that come up to give you 7 lights. That's a standard menorah. Well, they add a a an additional branch to give you 8 lights plus a center light, which is kind of the servant light that all the rest of them are lit from. And so every day they light a candle until on the 8th day they have all 9 candles lit. And that's part of the celebration of Hanukkah. And the reason I bring that up is because Jesus celebrated Hanukkah. It said that during the Feast of Dedication, which we just read in John 10, I think it was verse 22, he celebrated the Feast of Dedication. So Jesus followed the Jewish customs when he was alive and he was walking on the earth. You know, now there's 2 things here. One is that we have been grafted in to the tree of the Jews. If I can say this, we're Jewish. Now, we're not strictly Jewish in that many of us may not even have the heritage or even the DNA to say we are Jewish. I happen to come from a family. My great-grandfather was Jewish. He laid that aside when he married my great-grandmother, but his name was he was a Stern. So I have some Jewishness in my background, but there are many people that don't. But yet, Paul tells us. Matter of fact, let me go over here to it. It's in Romans. Chapter 11, Romans 11 says, "But if some of the branches are broken off, and you, being a wild olive, were grafted in among them, and became partaker with them of the rich root of the olive tree, do not be arrogant toward the branches. But if you are arrogant, remember that it is not you who supports the root, but the root supports you." So we've been grafted in. Okay? Think about that for a minute. We'll come back and look at this a little bit more, but I got to take another break. So let's take that break, and I'll be right back.